states and with the British, as I said, it was extremely, benign.
Yeah, of course.
So they can't send in military factions to literally seize, and the days of the British Empire were gone. They weren't working like that anymore.
Yeah.
So this is one of the reasons that I believe, from my research, there was a coveting and a grooming of these radical Zionists, because the greatest Zionists of the world, people like Theodor Herzl, on their deathbed recanted and said that they should never have been involved in such a thing. Because, as I said, they suddenly saw that it wasn't going to be non-violent, and it wasn't going to be this beautiful socialist, utopian, kibbutz-type paradise that the British had been promising the people of Israel.
Yeah.
They were no better off. They were doing wonderful in the countries before they left. When they finally got to Israel, they were so meager. Things were so bad that most of the intellectual Jews were wishing they'd never left. And they said, we thought it was bad, where we were.
Yeah.
And we should never have bought into this. And Theodor Herzl himself said, yes, I wish I had not been a puppet of the British government. But they downplay that. You're not meant to hear that.
Amazing.
So the discovery of these mineral resources there is the reason why this conflict was created, because they said if they could create a faux Zionist movement that would come into conflict with the Arabs, all eyes would be on that conflict.
Yeah.
And through the Zionist movement, we would lay claim then to the mineral resources there. And what we have to understand is this. The heavy mineral resources that are in the Dead Sea outweigh all of the earth put together.
Oh, really?
That's right. So it's like oil wells. It's like one guy saying, if I own this oil well, all your oil wells put together, of all your rivals anywhere in the world, it doesn't match it. So Lord Rothschild and the Warburgs, their eyes were bugging out of their heads, because these royal people want money. They need the resources of the earth, and they have it because they have other plans. And they knew that this is by all means important to get. So all of their previous arrangements, you see, with the Arabs, and to pacify them and to say, we're going to be on great working terms with you, we're going to be on excellent, merchant terms with you, and we'll have great business relations with you. All of that went out the window. And the sabotagers and the subverters of a good world order, that probably would have been so much more better than what we have now in the aftermath of the war, would have at least been more serving everyone, and certainly saving the lives of many people in the Middle East, was subverted by the descendants of Lord Palmerston, by these pro-Zionist British factions. And this is where people need to look for these horrors today and understand that both groups are being duped.
That is incredibly important, I think, to highlight that fact, because it feels like a lot of people, they stop at Zionism and see that as the ultimate conspiracy of basically everything. And of course, I mean, it isn't that the Zionist movement isn't working on on these things to claim the land and take over the region and all that, but that is extremely important to highlight that fact, I think, that it always goes deeper than the first level that we are allowed to see and research and get upset about, I guess. So
you see, these factions of Zionists would never have been able to fund it or conceive it on their own had there not been the might of the British Empire behind it. There are so many factions in this world within one religion. There are so many screwball notions and crackpots and fanatics, right, within every movement. But nobody's running around forming their own states.
No, exactly.
Nobody is arming troops and buying guns from America, and a massive amount of weaponry, and in fact have never prevented an independent outsource either from the United Nations or from anywhere else to invade their borders, to actually come and examine what kind of weapons they really have. No, crackpot groups can barely do that. The Soviet experiment was funded by Britain and Russia, Britain and America, and the Zionist movement is a brainchild of some very elite personages involved with the British Empire, seeking to have empire under another name, seeking to create totally full conflicts. And of course, if one goes really deep into the theological side of it, one will understand the complete preposterousness of it. In fact, the Jews of the world are 80 to 90% Turco-Mongolic stock and European racially, and have no connection to any state of Israel, any Israeli Jerusalem of ancient times, except by religious conversion. What does this mean? It means that by their own definition, in their own history books, they talk about the assimilation of the 10 of the 12 ancient tribes of Israel, because they say theoretically that they are related to these ancient tribes, and we have to look into that and say, okay, well, if that's the case, and then they say that in their own works, the 10 tribes of the house of Israel assimilated and were lost forever. They assimilated into the Western lands, married in with Western peoples, and are basically, keeping their religion, but are assimilated racially. So then how can it be in 1948 that the Zionist movement, when they actually are given the land in the Middle East, in Palestine, name their state the State of Israel.
State of, exactly.
Why do they not name it the State of Judah, since only the two tribes, by their own definition of Judah, that's the tribes of Levi and Benjamin, are not assimilated? Actually, that's nonsense as well, but at least by their own statements they say that all the other 10 tribes are long gone and Israel is forgotten. Israel is the West. Israel is America. Israel is wherever the people of Israel assimilate and marry into.
Yeah.
So it was again a lie put before people. It was a lie put before the Jews who come to synagogue to misread and misinterpret ancient scripture.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. If these old historical anecdotes are not brought in front of the people, Henrik, then of course you have the rise of Jew baiters and Jew bashers, and supremacists and extremists on the other side, who are equally ignorant and who even in fact may be equally funded by hidden hands, to rise up and create yet another dialectic.
Yes.
Blaming average, normal, assimilated Jews who don't know any of this, who are not condoning any kind of violence, and if they really had all the facts put in front of them, they'd be the first people to say, end it, stop it, we can't be doing this under the name of our God.
Exactly.
So, just when you're about to answer the problem, in comes the other, and many on the Christian right are into this, who have got some very interesting pieces of the puzzle, but error. They have error in it because they are extremist, they believe themselves to be racially superior, and then they begin to, bash ordinary Jews who've got nothing to do with this. And, I myself will not be put into that category because I know my subject, and my sources come from Jewish sources, by the way, from Dr. Katzstein and from Arthur Koestler, you see, and Benjamin Freeman, and many of the other writers who are Jewish, Max Demont. I don't take anything from other sources than from the original sources, from these doctrines and from these particular declarations that were signed. People can go and read it and see for itself the cunningness of which the British Empire groomed these extremists.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I recently published here an article by Barry Chamish. I don't know if you've heard of him. Barry Chamish. And he have...
Chamish.
Yeah, Barry Chamish. And he have hinted, a few times now in his articles that about this issue that both the Jews of the region and the Arabs of the region are being duped, to fight this war over each other. And he has also hinted, I guess, at that the deliberate destruction of Israel might be at hand, because if they have used this country as an instrument to gain ground and do what they're supposed to do, he recently said that he thinks of even a possible merger in this region, just to basically he says, I guess, that there's no need for the state of Israel anymore and that it will be gone. I mean, what's your take on that?
That could happen, because remember, if conflict goes to the point where there is a lot of casualties, then people will, of course, react, and they'll say, look, we're meant to be living in an era of world peace and world order, and how come our people are being slaughtered again? Then the United Nations, with impunity, can say, well, of course, what we need to do is create a buffer zone, and if you've watched the pro-Zionist evangelist news on this, on America over here, you will see that they've already dropped that hint. And they will say that, yes, we have to have a buffer zone between Lebanon and Israel. We'll have to build more walls. We'll have to be, more careful. And what might also happen is that just simply people stop going to Israel. They start backing out of all of this. And I think that I believe actually personally that the numbers of immigration to Israel have actually been falling drastically. And I believe that, because remember, the only reason why people went there in the earlier part of the middle part of the 20th century, Henrik, was because they were being ousted from Soviet Russia. They couldn't stand the intolerable, situations in Russia, which were very harsh. And also then, of course, we remember Germany, and they were fleeing from Germany and from during the First and Second World War. But we're not in a war zone anymore. So the need for people to be in this dust bowl out there, so it's funded by billions and billions of American dollars, they're thinking, no, wait a minute, we have our cousins and uncles and other relatives living very, very well in England and in America and Canada, and they're living it up. What are we doing out here in this dust bowl? So the novelty wears off, you see.
Exactly.
And I believe that the numbers have been steadily dropping, and this is why we have the Flight of Eagles, which is these are Christian organizations. You can get into the internet and look at Flight of Eagles, in which they're asking Gentile Christians to fund people, all Jews of the world. You can actually donate $700 and send Jewish families back to Israel. Now, they would not be doing any of this if there was a natural flow to Israel, and if the Israeli government was saying, listen, hey, we've maxed out our quota here, we're full up.
Of course.
So there's suspicion that the Israeli experiment is about to fail. And, of course, then you heat that up, don't you, by having your other side, Hezbollah, funded by America, funded by the CIA, funded by the British government, to start bombing and causing atrocities, so that then there's a legitimate response to Israel, pro-Israel, especially from these rabid evangelists, because you do it by carrot and stick. Yeah. The carrot is to drop the bombs to get sympathy, but then you have the whip crackers behind to goad you forward just in case you're lagging behind.
Yeah.
Which are these pro-Zionist Pat Robertsons, you see, and John Hagees, and this creature, Parsley, Rob Parsley, and all of these people in the TBN network and the Christian movement over here, especially Van Imp, and all of these people are funded from the Dutch royal houses. They're all agents of the British Crown and also of the Vatican, by the way. What people think are the Protestant pastors here, the true Protestant pastors have been overthrown long ago. They've been compromised, especially in American soil, and they've been replaced by these ecumenical pastors who appear to be Protestant on the surface, but they're actually agents of the Jesuits.
Amazing.
Yeah, another secret history of America that has not been, has been told, but these authors are suppressed, like Bill Hughes and, Phelps, John Phelps. The whole secret of how the Jesuits have destroyed the true voice of the Protestant America and put their own pastors in there who will not speak against Vatican like it used to be done. Oh, yeah, in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, if you went into a Protestant church, a great deal of the lectures, a great deal of the seminary and the discussion and the preaching there was also to educate you about the evils of the Vatican.
Yeah, exactly. To create
that was, whether you like it or not, that was a mainstay of Protestant, churches, is that they give leaflets out, they give you booklets, they referred you to sources, so that you, the Protestant masses, could educate yourselves to know that there was something vile going on in the world, which is why you're trying to break away and have your own religion.
Exactly.
Well, these pastors, I don't know if you know this, were actually removed. They were compromised either sexually or they were destroyed financially in an extremely important campaign that even President Lincoln knew about. He endorsed that this was going on. He admitted. And he said, yes, this kind of thing is going on. And whistleblowing from within the Catholic Church. It was Jesuit people who left the order because this was happening, and who whistleblew that explained that this was in fact happening. So this was to get rid of American Protestantism, which would be very, very anti-Zionist and very anti-Catholic and anti-Vatican, and that had to go because you wouldn't be able to do the things that you were doing in the Middle East. You wouldn't be able to sanction Zionism if you had a strong coterie of educated clergymen. You see, pastors over in this country, in America, who were telling it as it is. Because America is an extremely prestigious country, and all of the world would have looked to America as being a neutral and objective and involved and highly knowledgeable country when these kinds of cataclysms were taking place in other countries. People, intellectual class, would have said, well, what do the Americans think? What's coming out of America? So the powers that be had to make sure that they had a fifth column working to destroy the true nexus of what we're calling Protestantism on paper here, so that never could be an opposition to their machinations. So this is why we have a void. We have a big void when it comes to knowledge about these conflicts that are taking place, even the ones in Israel, certainly the ones in Northern Ireland, a lot of other conflicts that have taken place in the world.
Yeah. And I guess that now the religious climate almost is such in certain areas, I guess, that they're almost like they're waiting for the return of Christ, and in order for that to happen, we get to have this turbulent period, basically World War III, before this can happen. And I guess we have a climate now where people anticipate this and kind of almost wish for the violence to begin to start. So I mean, what's that all about?
Yeah, well, what you said is absolutely key. This is one of the key components. I'm glad we actually got to this. Because what we were talking about before, which may have been some crackpot type of, skewed religious understanding or an interpretation of a few Bible chapters, that always interests only a few people.
Yeah.
That is, especially even to this day, I'll tell you, that in Israel, people must not assume that all the Arabs and all the Jews are totally in favor of what's going on.
Of course not.
They have their own political parties with the extremists on one side and the moderates on the other. Not everyone is wanting this to happen.